We can call this the curious case of the Columbus Blue Jackets, can't we? So Columbus is a team that, and I know they've got fans. I'm not going to say they don't, but they're a curious team. They come into the league around the turn of the century, and since then, not a whole lot has happened for them. Not a lot of success in the regular season or postseason. This past spring was the first time they've ever made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. So right now, they're in an interesting position. You've got Bobrovsky, expiring contract. You've got Panarin, expiring contract. And both, it seems like Bobrovsky's asking more than what Columbus wants to pay, and Panarin doesn't want to stay as long as they want to keep him. There may be a short-term deal worked out with Panarin. I reported the other day that Panarin was going to, reportedly going to sit down with his agent in December and discuss what they're going to do about their contract. So it's not a fait accompli that he's gone. I really don't think that it is. September he just said, well, I'm done negotiating for the season. But if Columbus continues on the run they've been on, maybe that'll change. And that's the problem. So the topic is this. Do you sell Bobrovsky and Panarin at the deadline if you don't have something worked out? My answer is no. There's a simple reason why. Right now, the Columbus Blue Jackets sit 6th overall in the NHL, and they have a game in hand on a couple of the teams that are ahead of them. They've been on a decent run. They look like they're on the way to the playoffs for 3 years in a row, and they're building towards something. Now, there's a tremendous risk if you don't sell them at the deadline, and then you risk losing them as unrestricted free agents in July. Absolutely, yes. And there's a lot of risk built into that. But I would argue this. When you see a trade at the deadline, it's very rarely a hockey trade. So if they're going to make a hockey trade involving Bobrovsky or Panarin, do it now. Don't do it later, do it now. The problem is this. You need to have a goaltender that comes in as well who has to be capable of being a number one goaltender. There aren't a lot of teams out there that are in a playoff spot right now that would look at Bobrovsky and say, he's the guy I want in the playoffs. And I don't mean that to insult Bobrovsky, it's just he hasn't won a round, right? And he's had some middling stats in the playoffs, and last year Columbus fans got upset when that was the case again because they said it wasn't Bobrovsky's fault. And I agree, but we can only go with what's on the resume. And if other GMs look at that, they might say, I don't know. And Panarin, what's Panarin worth? For an established team, are they going to make it a one-for-one deal? Are you going to bring in a top-line winger for Panarin? Odds are it's probably going to be somewhat of a downgrade because teams know you have to get rid of them. So either you're taking back a player, a pick, and a prospect, or you're looking at some combination thereof, or maybe a downgrade and a prospect. I don't think Columbus is in a position to do any kind of downgrading. Looking at Columbus, their attendance, and this is why it's rather strange. This year, their attendance averages 15,124. Last year, their attendance was 16,659 in an arena that seats 18,500. That was the highest attendance they've had since 2005-2006 when they had 16,796. It's dipped as low as, in 2010-2011, 13,658. Columbus needs to win. Nationwide Arena is widely seen as a place you need to journey to. That if you're going to be looking at NHL arenas, go see Nationwide. It's an experience. So Nationwide is definitely on the list of places that once we're in a better position to be able to travel a lot, or at least go to East Coast. East Coast is real expensive. But once we're able to go to the East Coast and go to some of the Eastern Conference teams and visit their arenas, Columbus is absolutely near the top of the list of places I'd love to see. But, you know, they're a franchise that needs a win. This team desperately needs at least a series win. So if a deal doesn't present itself that's going to leave Jarmo Kekalainen saying, okay, now we're in our best position to win, why do you make the deal? That's my issue with it. Why sell off Bobrovsky and Panarin just to say, okay, we sold them? All right, we're good. We sold them. Because you have to consider the message that sends the fans. You have to consider the message that sends the players in the room. Like I said, right now they're 6th overall. And I agree with people who say, well, they don't really look like a contender. But as was pointed out on Sportsnet yesterday during this discussion, was Washington viewed as a contender going into the playoffs? No. And yet, they won the Stanley Cup. And in the first round, they might have faced their toughest challenge with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So for Columbus, moral victories are not something they want to hear about. But it does feel like this could be a year they break through. The Metro is not stacked with fantastic teams having fantastic seasons. And they absolutely, as a number one seed with home ice advantage, if they ended up getting that, they could absolutely be in a position to take out one of the wild card teams. It could be a frustrating year. Yes, you run that risk, and you run the risk of losing Bobrovsky or Panarin for nothing. But I honestly, I don't see what could justify trading them off. And if Kekalainen's going to stand there and say, well, this team's just not good enough, they're not really, they're probably not going to win a Stanley Cup, so whatever. Now he's taking his job, putting his job at risk. And you also risk alienating fans and sending your attendance back into the 13,000, 14,000 range. It's been a very up and down relationship when you look at the attendance in Columbus. We don't talk a lot about it because, again, it's kind of a forgotten franchise. When you look at the 31 teams in the league, Columbus might be the one that I think gets covered the least. It's close. It may not totally be. And for people to say, well, that would be Arizona. No, Arizona's covered a ton. There's negative coverage with Arizona, but it's covered a ton. Columbus really isn't. And that needs to change. And in order for that to change, first they had to find some success and stability, which they have over the last couple of years. They have, in John Tortorella, found a coach that has a good relationship with the players, and it works. And they have a good group there. It's a good mix. I'm telling you, I think there's more risk in trading these guys and sending a message to the fans of, well, we're just not ready right now. Because if you trade out Bobrovsky and you don't replace him with another bona fide NHL starter who has to be, at least a Tuukka Rask level or higher, what are you doing? Seriously, what are you doing? And I'm not suggesting Rask for Bobrovsky. That's not, no. I'm just throwing that out there as a name of a guy who maybe you might be able to pry. If Boston was to say, well, we can pay $11 million for Bobrovsky, I hope not. But anyways, again, it's, and I say I hope not only because they'd have a lot of money to pay other players, and I'd be very upset that all that money was going into a goaltender who, if it cost my team McAvoy later on, I'd be very upset. But anyways, that's the situation as I see it for Columbus. I really think the best option is to keep them and try to sign them. But I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Because this situation will come to a head between now and the February trade deadline. And I think it'll get a lot more press as we get closer. And I honestly think that selling them off would be a mistake. But let me know why I'm wrong in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.